Good morning, it's Mark Shepard, Mark Lewis Shepard, and we have gotten to the place where the blossoms have fallen off the cherry trees and the apple trees, and we are full tilt boogie towards summer, and it's cool. It's cool. I like my greenhouse. Don't use that stuff for a greenhouse. It'll fall apart in 2 years, 3 years. Anyway, today I'm excited because the other Mark Shepard, the guy who's kind of responsible for me taking the leap and jumping into farming, has agreed to an interview. And what happened was in 2016 or so, I went to YouTube to see if I typed in my name, if any of my music would show up. And it didn't. But this guy showed up. He doesn't even have his own YouTube channel. And he was all over the place because he is what he calls a restoration agriculture guy, restoration farmer, agroforestry, and he just blew my mind about developing land in a way that was in accordance with restoring the land. We now use the word regenerative agriculture, but restoration agriculture kind of has to come first to restore healthy ecosystems, and then to turn those ecosystems into perennial, scalable farms that will still be there 100, maybe 1,000 years from now. So I'm really excited because I'm going to interview him. It's my first Zoom interview, and I have many, many people on the list that I would like to interview, not only to kind of pick their brains, but to also honor the fact that they have influenced me profoundly. They have changed my life by speaking their truth, by pursuing their path, by seeing that we don't have to just walk blindly down the road of climate destruction, that each individual, through their choices of what we grow and what we buy, what we eat, can actually change the planet for the better. And maybe it's too little too late, but I believe we have to start. I believe we have to go for it. And so without further ado, Mark Shepard of Wisconsin, New Forest Farm, and Mark Shepard of Northern New York State. What's interesting is we are both songwriters, and he's a pretty good one. So that got my attention. I saw him pull out his guitar at a talk he gave, and definitely go to YouTube, type in Mark Shepard. He will come up. I probably won't, but he will. And I don't know. I don't know where we're going to go with this, but we're really enjoying each other at this point, getting to know each other, and we have so much in common. So here it is. Mark Shepard interviews Mark Shepard, who's being interviewed by Mark Shepard, and it's the Mark Shepard's podcast. Boom.
Now it says we're recording.
All right. Okay, good. So I am very excited to welcome Mark Shepard to the Mark Shepard's podcast, which is the first one we've ever done. I don't know if there will be more. That'll all depend. But very quickly, I want to introduce this man who I found accidentally in 2016 when I was searching for myself on YouTube to see if my music videos were getting traction. I typed in Mark Shepard. I did not come up, but this man came up, and I remember distinctly he was wearing a yellow raincoat, and he took people on a walk through his farm. And I was absolutely blown away by everything he said. And I was like, whoa. And so I watched another video and another video. And over the years, I've probably watched maybe, I don't know, 75% of the many videos that are out there with this man. And what's so cool is that you don't even have a YouTube channel.
I have not filmed any of those. None of my team has done that. That's always somebody else filming it and posting it.
Right. And that's like, you think about other people's land, farming on other people's land. I'm actually exploring using renting sheep to put them under solar projects. So other people's animals, but other people's YouTube channels. I love the fact that you somehow your message has gotten out and through into the world, probably through no fault of your own.
Ain't no fault.
Well, I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. So,
It's been a very deliberate process. I'll speak Canadian because you're near the Canadian border there. It's been a very, a deliberate process, but I if I had the intention of doing other people's YouTubes as a strategy, I probably wouldn't have been able to pull it off.
probably, yeah. It
All
just
I'm doing is being me, being genuine with what I do and who I am.
right. So I know you've probably said this thousands of times at various different events, but can you maybe introduce those people who are watching this who might not know who you are, and like how you got into restoration agriculture, regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, whatever word you want to pin on it. You started out in Alaska for some reason.
Well, that was the last jumping off point. No, I was born and raised in north central Massachusetts,
Ah, okay.
and it was I was born in the 60s, kind of like was 10 or 11, 12 years old in the early 70s when the industrial clean out happened in the USA, and
Right,
all of the, not all, but a large majority of the factories in the area that supplied everybody, with jobs and contaminants and stuff like that, they basically all shut down and moved their operations overseas.
right,
But the biggest game when I was a little kid was to when we lived on top of a hill. So if you and a river made a big loop around the hill, and if you go north, you'd have to cross the river. If you go south, you'd have to cross the river. That's the only road. And the big game would be we get in the car, me and my brother, we'd kind of guess, what color is the river today? What color is the river today? It'd be blue, green, orange, yellow, all these different colors. It was like it was the toxic waste dump for all the different factories with their
right,
chemical dyes. And I saw in a few short years when there was enough political pressure and actually acts of sabotage that caused them to all of a sudden say, hey, maybe it does make economic sense to put in a wastewater treatment plant. The river cleaned up. It still stunk, and the bottom was horribly ugly and messy, and it like regurgitated paper mache for decade afterwards. But it cleaned up. And what was really neat was to see that nature can actually heal itself. So that's all happening on one stream. Well, parallel to that, early 70s, we had the oil embargo. The OPEC nations cut off the supply of gasoline to the U.S., petroleum in general. And there was gas rationing. And you'd use your license plate, and the last number on your license plate, if it was odd, you could go on these days, even you could go on those days. You could only get so many gallons at a time. And the lines were just insanely long. And we ran out of fuel in one of the lines about a pushing a half a mile away from the gas station. And I'm the big 10-year-old kid. My little brother was 8 years old. My baby brother's up front screaming and hollering, throwing Cheerios at my mom who has to steer the thing. So me and my next younger brother, get out. We have to push the car. Now, I'm not going to say that being the oldest, I was bigger, I was stronger. And then if you're the oldest sibling, you always know that your younger siblings never pulled their weight. I'm not going to say that my younger brother didn't push. But let's say I had a long time to think about how critically dependent we were on this whole fossil fuel thing, that we had to have gas in the car to get my dad transportation to get to work, to earn the money, to buy the food, to get the energy, to go to work, to get the money, to buy the food, to get the energy, to go to. It's like, what are we doing this for? Well, at that time, of course, uh, now I'm probably 245, 250 pounds, 6 foot tall. I'm not a small guy. I've never been a small guy. I'm the smallest of my three brothers.
ah,
So they used a scoop shovel to feed us, practically. And so my dad started growing a garden. And fascinating coincidence is he grew up at a hunting and fishing lodge. My grandfather was the guide. A doctor owned the lodge. Doctors back then were botanists. So when the Depression and World War II basically shut that whole business down, the doctor took my dad's family down to Massachusetts, and he trained my dad in making compost and gardening without toxins,
Wow.
because now toxins were really becoming into the mainstream as to how to grow food. Well, coincidentally, 50 miles up the road from where this doctor owned this lodge was where Ernfried Pfeiffer, who was Rudolf Steiner's grad student, first came to the USA. It was in, I think it's Vanceboro, Maine, right on the Canadian border. And they started a community up there until the post-World War II anti-foreigner, especially Germanic sounding voices, it ended up being sabotaged, and they moved the whole operation to Spring Valley, New York. So my dad was a biodynamic gardener, and he did this really radical thing called making compost. And it was like the flourishing of the hippie era, and all these hippies would come through and learn how to make compost and stuff. So that's kind of like how I got the start.
Yeah, okay.
But back to the oldest brother thing, being the oldest brother and bigger and stronger, there's huge gardens, probably 2 acres of gardens that my dad had at one point in time. It came to be my job and my responsibility to do a lot of the work, especially a lot of the building compost. And so I'm hauling material, stacking material, turning compost piles, putting finished compost in wheelbarrows, bringing it out into the garden, spreading it around. And you take a wheelbarrow full of compost and you spread it over 2 acres. You get like a couple of black crumbs. It's like, how is this fertilizer?
Right, right.
And so you're out in the full sun, you're getting covered with dirt, and you're sweating like crazy. You get streaks of brown mud on you. And then when I was finally done with what I had to do for the day, I could go run off in the woods. So now when I run off in the woods, I'm eating blueberries, hickory nuts, everything under the sun is out there to eat. And I'd sit on this rock at the edge of this clearing and think to myself, it's like, well, why do I get more food here in the woods in this particular system here with a lot less work? I'm working in the shade, not covered with dirt. I'm getting more food here than I do out in the garden. Well, why can't I take the woods, move it out into the garden? And why can't it take some of the garden stuff and move it into the woods and have this kind of like combined system, unbeknownst to me, that's called agroforestry. Eventually ran into a book called Tree Crops by J. Russell Smith, written in 1926. And the whole premise of that, at that point in time, 50% of the grains in the US were fed to livestock. Now it's more like 80% plus. Um, he said, well, why don't we grow all these animal feeds on the trees with grass underneath? And then we can concentrate on the most fertile ground to grow the human food, the vegetables, and the high quality carbohydrates for people. And that made total sense to me. So I started going down that path. And that's kind of where it all kicked off internally with me. I
Right.
put the whole J. Russell Smith tree crops, moved the garden into the woods into the garden, and took it from there.
Wow. Because as many things, since we're the same age, we've lived through a lot of the same stuff. My dad grew up on a farm in Western New York, and
Since I'm from Massachusetts, I'll ask you, what Pat?
what?
What Pat?
What, Pat?
Yeah.
Near the Genesee River,
Okay.
Wyoming County.
Tennessee cream ale, the old stale ale with the foam at the bottom.
That's that's right. That's right. So he he grew up on what essentially was an organic farm because there were no inputs. They just farmed the way everybody used to farm, right? So when we moved, he was a chemist and he worked for Union Carbide, horrible company. But we moved to Westchester County, New York, and we lived across the street from 40 acres of the original Van Cortlandt Manor estate. So from the 1700s, and there was
Right.
40 acres over there. And the lady across the street gave me permission to walk her land. And so I'd come home from school realizing now that I was probably an undiagnosed autistic kid, just like, and I'd go out into the woods and just sit on a rock And I had some amazing experiences where a huge multi-point buck walked right by me, and he had kind of like an Appaloosa rump.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
and he that happened a couple of times. I had some kind of weird spiritual experiences out there, and I made a vow to protect that land. And my idea was I would make $1 million as a famous musician, then buy that property and protect it from the developers. Well, I failed, and it's now all McMansions there.
Right.
Uh, but that kind of motivated me to do that. And my dad started a garden, and of course, he was a chemist, so he would come home and he'd put this white powder on the tomatoes, and we didn't know that that was horrible. But
Yeah.
he did get converted into the whole organic gardening thing. He read a book by uh, a woman, oh, Ruth Stout, I think was her
Oh,
name.
yeah, she lived up the road from us, and my dad knew
Yeah.
Ruth. Yeah.
And he started getting into eating healthy food and growing our own food. And of course, he's an amputee, so I ended up doing the gardening. Like it was his garden, but like
Right.
I did all the work. I dug it, I planted, I harvested, I did all the work. So like that was like in me from an early age as well. So I think when I saw what you were doing, it awakened this thing that like, and as you said earlier before we started the recording, what else is there to do? Like what else makes sense for us to be doing? So
Well, one of the things, for those who aren't familiar with Ruth Stout, some of the things that she pioneered was deep mulch gardening. She wrote like the no-till garden book and the deep mulch garden book, stuff like that.
yeah,
And now to how do I tie that directly into what you said is basically the kind of agriculture that I, promote restoration agriculture, ecological restoration simultaneous with growing food for and fuels and medicines and building materials and fibers for people is think about all the leaves that fall off the trees in New York State. What do? They fall to the ground and they make a mulch layer. Who had to do that? Nobody.
right.
No work. So we can have a Ruth Stout deep mulch garden without actually doing any work. That's really cool.
That really grabbed me as well. The less amount of work. Um,
I still do work. There is, work involved and it's strategically timed. And the biggest skill is to know what to do when so that what I am doing here actually supports the other different parts of the system around me. So let's take trimming branches off of these spruce trees that were planted to be house logs. If I cut the branches off in the middle of the summer, I cut the branches off in the middle of summer, good for me. If I cut them off in November, I can make them into Christmas wreaths and then I can sell Christmas wreaths. So the timing of when you do the work is more critical in a system like this than just getting the work done.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually a very musical principle. Now, because timing, music is all about when you do it matters. Like,
And if you notice this instrument right up here,
yeah,
the one of the instruments I'm the most competent on is the banjo. And you can hear those banjo players going 1,000 miles an hour, but what you don't know is all of a sudden they're lost for a 30-second count. They just stop and they pick it back up again. And so the rest is probably my strongest musical note. I can really, oh, I can play a rest like you wouldn't believe.
restoration agriculture. It's
Oh,
allowing the rest, right?
yeah.
See, I really think music and regenerative and restoration agriculture have a lot, and it's no accident. One of your talks, I saw you pull out a guitar and sing a song. I'm like, whoa, I get this. This is cool. So when did music come into your life?
Oh, it's really um at some point in time, I don't know why, I was probably 6, I think. My mom decided that I needed to have accordion lessons. And so she would march me up to accordion lessons like, once a week. And then on like Thursday night, all of the other kids that were doing accordion lessons would all get together and you have like this group, everybody plays the same kind of songs. And she would force me We didn't have a gun that she would use, but about the closest thing to being held at gunpoint to learn how to play this accordion. And I'd have to do my half hour of practice a day. And boy, I'd be asking at like minute 20, hey, can I quit now? Can I quit now? It should get me to 31 minutes and then let me go. And then I'd have to go work in the garden before running off in the woods. But anyways, so that's where it all started. And actually, I'm uh, really grateful for the fact that I was taught how to read music. And as soon as I was in about fourth grade in school, I picked up, they taught us how to play the little plastic flutophone. Then I picked up the trombone. And then the band instructor realized it had a little bit of a musical competency. So he said, hey, these are the same notes. Here's the bass clef that the trombone is. I've got enough trombones. Why don't you play the baritone for this piece? Well,
Wow.
this piece, how about a bass trumpet? It's the same notes, the same fingerings. Now play the bass trumpet. Now play the helicon. Now play the tuba. And so he would jump me around to the different instruments as he needed the voice in the band. And then by the time I got to high school, I was pretty much like a hot shot on the tuba. And so it's a toss up as to whether I'm more competent on the banjo or the tuba.
Oh my
But
God.
basically, with either instrument, I can sit down and I can jam along with somebody and do it. So that's kind of where the music thing came from. Well, then it's pretty tough to cart a tuba around as you run away in the woods.
Yeah.
And when I ran away to live in the woods, I picked up a guitar at a pawn shop or whatever. And since I didn't know how to play guitar, I strung it like a banjo, and so I played it like a
Wow.
banjo for
Okay.
years. Yeah, for 15 years anyways, I played a guitar strung like a banjo.
Wow. So it's kind of an open tuning, really, right?
It's open G.
G. Interesting. Yeah, I played the French horn in the high school band.
Oh
I wanted,
wow.
I wanted to play the drum, but my mom was a second grade teacher and she was very good at hypnotizing me to change my mind. She did not want to hear drums in the house.
Didn't hypnotize you? Boom! You will
That's
not play drums.
right.
Boom! You will not play drums.
My sister joined the campaign and said, "Listen, they have plenty of drummers, but there's only one French horn player, and he needs help."
You'll be the star.
So I literally just started playing the French horn again. Someone gave me one, and my last two songs that I released on YouTube, I played the French horn. So
Cool.
that's cool to know. You got a
Yeah.
brass guy going there.
Yeah. When did you pick up guitar?
Guitar in literally the same year, eighth grade. I started the French horn and I started the guitar as well.
Okay. So one of the things that um, it wouldn't take too much to correct, and I'm sure I'd pick it up pretty quick. But all these different instruments that I can play all of them, but I've figured them out on my own,
Right.
and just figured it out. So the whole idea, this music theory thing, I just watched a quickie little clip on playing a Stevie Ray Vaughan lick. I saw that on my Instagram post. And it's like, oh, but if I know where all these different chords are located, I can be jumping all over the place. But I don't.
Right.
I don't know where they are because that's not how I taught myself and how I learned. And I
Right.
just haven't taken the time to sit down and figure that all out. Because there's the ukulele, there's the mountain dulcimer, three accordions, my trombone, my banjo, my upright bass, a fiddle, uh, auto harp, guitar, banjo, and compound bow.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think there's also a connection between multi instrumentalists and the fact that as a farmer, you also have to master multiple different things and working with ecosystems, you're dealing with multiple different systems all at the same time. And really instruments are just systems and it's just patterns.
And one of the things that I would encourage all of your listeners to do is to now listen to and start with slower music, some real slower full orchestral music with all the voices, 50 different instruments. Now start listening. You're using your attention. So you're hearing, you can't shut your ears unless you put your fingers in it. So you hear all of those sounds in their fullness,
Right.
all simultaneously at the same time. Your mind now synthesizes this, and you have this emotional experience at the same time with this auditory, physical, sensory experience. What you can also do at the same time, I got these two things going on. Now you can take your attention and you can move your attention to the French horn. And while you're still hearing the full orchestra and having this emotional response, now you can be listening specifically to the French horn voice. And then he's like, oh, listen to the bassoon for a while. Oh, and let's that timpani's just rolling around underneath. So you have the ability to move your attention around within your sensory experience in order to find the specifics. So when it comes to an ecosystem, when you walk out into the woods, you know, how much of the auditory sensations are audible to you? All of them. How
Right.
many do you actually hear crystal clear and perfectly? All of them.
Yeah.
So now you can pay attention to all of the sound simultaneously all at once. And that's what I do when I walk off into the woods. Um, all the stuff within your visual range, you can see it all crystal clear because it's focused on your retina. To get that focused, wow, we can focus on an infinite number of data points at
Right.
any point in time. How much are we really paying attention to? People walk through New York City, you intentionally don't focus. You got these blinders on, you just kind of,
Right.
so yeah, that's very musical.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I record, I literally I mix the audio to the video. So every new instrument that I add, I figure out where it's going to be. Is it going to be on the right side or the left side? And then I try to put it there on the screen. And then I do that same thing that you suggested. I try to adjust the mix so you can hear everything together. But if you do focus on the bass or you focus on the flute or focus on the French horn or whatever, it's totally there and jumps out at you.
So if I watch one of your videos, it has these multi-instruments. I've seen a couple of them when you got your faces all over the place. This disembodied white face with a black shirt floating in
Right.
space.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at my computer and up over here on the left, I see a French horn, for example. Is that where you put the French horn auditorily? So I'm hearing
Yes.
it up there. That's fucking cool. Pardon my German. That is
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It's really it's kind of neat. And one of the things that I've done um is in order to get my butt into this chair and record is I come out early in the morning before I get my dad out, before I go to the farm, before I deal with any of the other stuff, so that I'm kind of grounded in this music thing. Because I've been writing songs for 50 years and I've been just so frustrated trying to get anybody to listen to them or get them out. And in that time space, technology has improved to the point where I can now do it myself. I don't have to hire recording studios or engineers or all that kind of stuff. But again, I'm self-taught as well. I do read music, but not very well. It's kind of like someone who is functionally illiterate can pass.
Yeah, right.
I can use music once I know the tune. And I fooled my piano teacher for about a year. I was just learning stuff by ear. And my sister had her as well. So I was just playing a lot of the same pieces by ear that my sister had learned by looking at the notes.
In fourth grade, I learned Bohemian Rhapsody on the accordion. And I had my teacher, my music teacher, get me the sheet music, and he'd sit there and turn the pages as I'm playing, and all at the appropriate places. And I had him absolutely totally fooled. I was illiterate. I was just playing by ear and blowing his mind.
Good. Well, that's good. So how does that translate into where you are on your farm at this time? I know we're kind of running out of time already, but
I'll keep rolling if you want. If you
yeah,
got time to roll, we'll
yeah, I
roll.
do. I set it for 2 hours. Because what I see is you have all these different interests, and I have all these different interests, and I might say I'm a songwriter who is a farmer. You might say you're a farmer who's a songwriter. I don't know how you would describe yourself, but I suspect that these abilities to integrate multiple different ideas and disciplines into one thing is kind of what we might both be good at in different ways. So I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit and how you've integrated all this kind of.
Well, part of let's kind of we'll kind of go back in time as well. You know what? I was brought up in this particular area. You've got to go to a good school, get a good job, and then get blah blah, work for 80 years and have a heart attack, get a second home in New Hampshire or whatever the deal is. And so I went to a good school, getting a decent education, mechanical engineering, got my first job, and I was there for basically a year and a half. And it's like, what the fuck have I signed up for? This is not me. And so I quit in an instant, went back to school for ecology. It's like, now this is more like it. Oh my gosh, I love this. This is how nature works and learning how nature works. And then pretty soon I'm finding myself in a laboratory with jars of insects that are in formaldehyde, got a fume hood, the glasses, and the lab coat. And it's like autumn in central Maine. I went to Unity College in Maine back when it was a campus based college, and I'm keying out insects, the same freaking insects that could be found in the lake down there, but I'm not sitting down on the lake surrounded by the full blazing New England colors, seeing the blue and hearing the water and seeing all the birds and stuff like that. I'm in a laboratory. It's like, if this is what ecology is all about, and then I got to write this paper, and then you do math, like 1,000 pages worth of math in order to justify your life. It's like, screw that. And so the whole paying attention to the bug in a jar, to me, is not really ecological understanding. Being out on the shore and picking up a bug, I can do all of the intellectual stuff and all that understanding stuff, and now see a context and relationship and how can I interact with it and work with it. And so that was more of my passion, was being there and working with it. Now, you live in upstate New York. I'm very familiar with your territory. You got cousins that live right nearby you. If you look at the ditch on the side of the road, you have all of these people in lab coats that are in charge of the agriculture. They're the ones designing the machinery, the fertilizers, the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. Uh, they are now have salespeople that are propagandizing the farmer that this is what you have to do. And we know we're right because we have books of statistics this thick to prove it over and over and over and over. And anybody who has a dissenting voice gets ignored or shut out and cut out of the mainstream because we're right because we have PhDs.
Right.
And so now there's this whole false culture. So much of the human race and civilization is not necessary and is based on a lie. It's just not true. And so you have to till the ground in order to plant a crop. You have to get rid of everything else that's not your crop. You have to give it fertilizer. You have to take care of the pests and diseases. That's all absolute. I'm going to say this on your podcast. Absolute bullshit, okay? Bullshit. And I can prove that. And you can prove it. Everybody can. You go down the side of the road and you look at the ditch on the side of the road. There is stuff growing in the ditch on the side of the road. Nobody did cover crops for years. Nobody mulched it. Nobody planted it, plowed it, did herbicide, fungicide. Nobody did anything to it. If anything, they abused it. They ran into it when they were drunk on a Friday night. They hit it with a snowplow. They spray salt on it all winter long, and it still keeps coming back over and over and over and over again. And in your part of New York State, I know as an absolute fact, in these ditches, you'll find things like, oh, you'll find oak trees, butternuts, hazelnuts, various different kinds of cherries, wild apples, grapes, raspberries, blueberries, service berries. You find all of this food that grows absolutely wild, absolutely untended, and it's a full, complete human diet with all the calories, vitamins, minerals, proteins that you ever could possibly want, and nobody does squat to take care of it.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that sounds like sustainable agriculture.
Yeah.
And
Dude.
so that's what I started to model was, let's go find various different plant community types that we intellectually learned. These plants are always found together. So if you're in an area that has these particular plants, plant that plant community type that goes with it. And now manage it as an ecosystem instead of as an orchard.
Right. And I remember distinctly when you talked about that in one of your talks or videos, and it just it it was like the Apostle Paul hitting the road at Tarsus. Just all of a sudden, my eyes were open, although he was blinded. It was like blinded by the light. Oh
Yeah.
my God!
Now I had the organ playing immediately, pal, as soon as you said that.
And and right near where I was living in Delmar, New York at the time, right near Albany, there was an old railroad track, and they turned it into a rail trail. And I took a walk down the rail trail after your video opened my eyes, and I'm like, oh my God, here are the cane fruits. It was literally row cropping. There's a
Yep.
trail in the middle, and then on either side are cane fruits, and a little higher than that are like uh the more shrubby trees, maybe wild apples, crab apples or whatever. And then above that were walnuts
Yeah.
as well as oak trees. And I'm like, oh my God, we could just live here.
Yeah.
We could farm the rail trail.
I used to farm
Just
the power lines.
it just ignited me. I was just like, oh my God. I loved that. It was like, this makes so much sense. So thank you
Yes,
for
I was near power lines as a kid, and I would have my nurseries and my breeding programs going up and down the power lines in central Massachusetts. And it talk about food security. If you go walking down the road, the zombie apocalypse happens and see a garden, nice straight rows and all that kind of, Mr. McGregor kind of stuff, you'll go out and steal that guy's food. But if
right,
you're walking down the road and you see nothing but just the wild brush on the side of the road, most people won't even know what they're looking at.
right,
And to
right.
me, it's food.
I remember you saying in a video, someone was saying, "Well, I can hardly find the apple trees," and you said, "Yeah, the pests can't find them either; they're hiding." And then grapes were growing up all along as well. And I think you had pointed out in one of your videos that grapes didn't originate in a nice little on a trellis; they grew up on other trees and things. And I'm like, oh,
So some of the work that I do is, it's in my coat pocket because it's really cold. It's like not even 40 here. It's really
that's
cold
cool
and
too.
drizzly. And so I'll just walk around with my pruners, and as I'm walking from point A to point B, snip, 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 just a little bit of nipping at it. I'm not working.
Right,
I'm going from point A to point B, but something happened while I was doing that.
right,
So that is one of the things I claim that there's so little work involved that I do sheer total utter neglect or strategic total utter neglect. And somebody says, "Yeah, but your total utter neglect is constant. You're always out there doing something." It's like, yeah, but I'm not like working. I consider work to be, okay, now I get the bins and I'm harvesting like 10
right.
tons of hazelnuts this next week.
I
That's
think
work.
I think there's a difference between tending, stewarding, and working. I don't know. There's a place for all of it. Like if I'm on the phone and it's nice out after dinner, I have my clippers in my hand and I just walk around and just trim, prune things, But the rest of the time, I'm happy to just let it grow.
Yeah. And then certain times you have to respond to what nature's throwing at you.
Right.
Like chestnuts will only be falling off the tree for a period of, a couple, 3 weeks at the most. And if you're not out there getting them, the turkeys and the deer are, and the crows and the blue jays. And so same with, excuse me, with apples, so you've got to be there and you have to apply yourself, especially in you know, temperate and colder climates, is that we have to store up, enough foods to last through the winter and enough fat in order to go along with it.
Right.
Whereas in the tropics, it's not as urgent that you like do that kind of work.
Right. So, oh man, I have so many questions. Let me just look at my notes real quick. You mentioned your famous son.
Right.
I love this. Sheer total utter neglect or strategic total utter neglect. Um, how did you come upon that brilliant and simple idea?
Well, of course, I learned whatever I could learn because if I'm going to come out here and do this farming stuff, all the different orchard books and that kind of stuff, I'm, learning as best as I can. And so I plant an area and I'm growing wholesale quantities of organic produce, and that required tilling the field, doing weed control, cultivating all that kind of stuff. And so I had the annual crops took so much work to tend to it that a lot of my tree plantings, I got like this apple orchard. Originally, I was going to do an orchard, my chestnut orchard, and my hazelnut orchard, and they required their own specific sets of work separate from one another, and I could never get it all done. So other parts of the system went totally wild and crazy, and it's like, you know what? It was only a few years after the tended stuff that the non-tended stuff started to produce. And it produces almost as much with zero work. Why don't I start doing a lot less work? And then you were saying going along the rail tracks or the rail trail, seeing all the different species that were in there, I started to notice weeds coming up in these untended areas. And so in my chestnuts, I started getting gooseberries, raspberries, mulberries, and elderberries. It's like, oh yeah, because that's the birds are going out, they're picking the other stuff, they're coming up on a branch, and they're either getting chased by somebody else and they drop their fruit, or they run it through their digestion and they poop it out in a little packet of fertilizer. It's like, well, okay, why don't I now plant multiple species in the same place? And then all of a sudden you look around and look at nature, it's like, duh, this is what it's doing all over the place.
Yeah.
So then I started to fatten up all the systems and add more and more species to it. And then it triggers something else from ecology studies. Back when I was at university, it was not quite known why, but it had been well known that the total yield of a piece of surface area of planet, the total yield was somehow related to the total number of species. The
Oh,
more species on that particular, piece of ground, the more, net photosynthetic productivity was coming off that piece of ground. And so then they're theorizing, well, it's obviously because this species supports that one, which supports this one, which supports that one. So it's this additive kind of thing. So I get out of university before they solved that problem. And it was not until like the late 90s, maybe the early 2000s, that they basically said, no, it has everything to do with the total number of species, and it really doesn't matter what those species are. The more species you cram onto an area, the more total photosynthetic productivity you'll have. Now, okay, I'll take that information. They've studied it, they've done the math. Now, here's the trick. If I have 1,000 species out there, there's 1,000 different things on this acre. I don't have enough volume of anything to justify my time in harvesting it. I go out there as one hazelnut and I get 16 nuts.
right.
I can't, that won't feed me. It's not enough to use as a trade item, and I can't sell it into a wholesale market. So how can I create these a little bit truncated natural systems? Obviously, it's a wicked, crazy, diverse, perennial system, but it's not as crazy diverse as a natural system. And it was then that something else got triggered on me, because when I did move here from Alaska, I looked at what was the pre-European plant community types that were here,
Right.
and this area here was like the boundary between oak savanna and northern hardwoods. And you look at the indicator species list of what describes an oak savanna, an ecologist goes out with their checklist and they go, yep, it's got this, 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 this. Oh, this is a degraded oak savanna. Once upon a time was, or northern hardwoods. And so I was looking through that list and it's like, wait a minute, wow. Oak as an overstory can also have chestnut or beech. Understory of Crataeguses and Malices, which are apples. There's cherries in there, various different heights from black cherry to pin cherry to um, various different bush cherries and plums. Then there were hazelnuts, raspberries, grapes, currants and gooseberries, all kinds of ground flora, and then animals grazing in the system. And it's like, wait a minute, why can't I just plant, those 5 or 6 species?
Right. Right.
Since this is taller than this, plant them in a single row at the same time. And as they grow, they sort themselves out by height. So you have these tall trees up above, the shorter trees, the medium trees, the shrubs, the shade tolerant stuff underneath. And then there's so much biomass being produced that it has to decompose. Well, what decomposes woody biomass? Mushrooms. Why not plant my own favorite mushrooms? So the whole entire ecosystem can be a food ecosystem. And this bumps us right into the whole concept, and the word concept is very important, of a food forest.
Right.
Food forest is an idea
Right.
that people came up with and now have imposed it upon reality, and now they view reality through this idea. It's not reality.
Right.
What reality is that stuff. Reality is that stuff that was on the side of the rail trail that you saw in that part of New York. That's what reality is, and it does not meet the description of what a food forest is. I prefer to meet reality where it is, how it is, what it actually is, and I don't have to give it a name. Let it be.
Right. Right.
Because as soon as you make a distinction, this is a food forest. You've now made this distinction. This is the separation of good and evil. This is good, therefore I want more of it. This is evil, therefore I want less of it. This is a food forest and it has to look like this. And if it doesn't look like this, I have to get rid of it. That is when you leave the garden, you're gone, you're lost.
Right. Dude, that's so powerful. And it's to get to spirituality, the whole process of dealing with reality rather than what we want it to be. Like, what is real? Like, where are our projections and what is real? I think you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, let's not name it. Let's just do it.
And interact with it and interact with it.
Yeah.
And if we're the conductor now, and we're helping this or that, and we are making choices, we're making value decisions based on what it is that we want to fulfill in this world. Some of my value decisions where I wanted to feed my family healthy, saw my thumbs up on the screen here. I wanted to feed my family healthy food. I didn't want to have to buy poisonous food for my family because I didn't have any money. I wanted to have enough to sell so I could have at least a reasonable income to pay the, mortgage and taxes and stuff like that. And I want to recreate a Garden of Eden as a natural ecosystem on this planet. And so I am here to tend this garden, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, the parallels are just fascinating.
Right. Yeah.
Fascinating. I want to create a system. I want to create a system where every tree is good to eat and surrounded by herbs on the ground that are also good to eat.
Yeah. And mushrooms that are good to eat. And
Yeah. I'm currently overdosing on oyster mushrooms. It's like once you get a system like this going, it's like you'll have the seasonal gluttony. It's just amazing. This
great.
is the asparagus and mushroom time of year. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
And eggs, of course, the chickens are just starting to really go like crazy. So
Yeah. I do ducks, and we only had maybe 1 week where we weren't getting a couple of duck eggs every day during the winter. So I'm pretty impressed. We only have 4 of them, but
ducks are so cute. And then when they walk around in a clump, it's like they got something important. They're doing something
I know.
important.
I like
Come back this way. They got something important. Something important.
I like just walking and steering them. I can just put my hand out and they go the opposite way, just with my hands, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm collaborating with Joel Howie at Canton Apples, and he is a regenerative orchardist. And it when I first met him about a year ago, it was like when you and I first started talking a couple of months ago. It was like a meeting of the minds. And what I like is he's an extrovert and I'm an introvert. So like he wants people to come to his farm. Like I'm
Right.
happy going to my farm to be with the animals and get my quiet time, but we have his farm, and he wanted to get the animals on the land, and we're working on moving my cows there. That's a whole other story, but we put the sheep there last summer, and it was really cool to see the impact that having the animals there not only had on his land, but on just the interaction with his customers who come to his farm stand. And it was really exciting. You have found a way to use animals on your land where it seems, from my observation of all your videos, that you pretty much don't winter them over. How do you do that? What's your strategy with
The
animals?
strategy has been buy smaller animals in the springtime and then sell them in the fall.
Okay.
What gets weird about that is in the springtime, that's when all the seasonal grazers are competing to buy however many animals are out there. So you're buying when the price is high.
Right.
And in the fall, you go and you sell them in the fall. That's when all the seasonal grazers are dumping their animals, and so the price goes low. So you're buying high and selling low. And so what I strive to do to make up for that difference is gain. You got to gain at least 300 pounds per animal and have zero costs other than that. No buying hay, no
Right.
cutting hay, none of that stuff. It's just like you get them out there, you walk them on the grass as long as there's grass, then you get rid of them. And then having at least a portion of them that you're selling direct to the consumer as a whole animal.
Right.
And if you can only handle a half per year, you figure out how to split it with a friend, as I'm just selling whole animals.
Right.
And that, for the most part, that has worked pretty well. Some years, you make a reasonable profit on it, and sometimes you don't make much at all. This year is really strange because the availability of animals is short and the price is extremely high. And I'm just talking about this with Taylor Henry, who's a guy who helped me with the cattle here, and we can't quite figure out how to pencil this one out this time. And there have been years that I just don't have the animals.
Right.
Uh, and pigs have never really been all that profitable because what you have to pay for them and what you can justify selling pork for. People just won't spend
Right.
high amounts of money on pork like they do with beef. And so as long as I have the pigs around, I'm fine because they're performing an ecological function and I get two of them in my freezer.
Right.
Uh, and so right this year we haven't figured out the cattle thing yet. But that's what it's been is you buy them in the spring and sell them in the fall.
Okay. So you just go to a sale barn and buy them, or how do you
It
how do
would it would
you buy
depend.
them?
Well, so I live embedded in several different Amish communities, and so you can kind of talk around to the various different Amish, and you can sign up ahead of time. With the pigs, for example, I work with a guy who he raises pork for Nyman Ranch, and the best price for a finished hog when you're selling to Nyman Ranch is like July. And so that means farrowing in February, which means you're going to lose a lot because it's so cold. And then you got to carry him through by May. The time May rolls around, he knows that these ones are going to make weight and those ones aren't. And so I take his underweights, which they're larger than just a little piglet. So I get them a little bit bigger and I'm able to finish those out on the ecosystem here. And it only costs about 135 pounds of purchased feed to feed the pigs. That's one way of doing it. And that's been where I'm going to continue doing that as long as William is happy with this arrangement. I'm happy with it too. With the cattle, we've tried everything. We've one point in time, uh, the price of dairy bull calves was so ridiculously low. People were just like shooting them and pushing them in the ditch. So we'd get them for free. Then there were other times that you set up a relationship with a dairy farmer, say, I'll take all your bull calves at this price. They can at least predict the price and they sell it to you. We've done the sale barn. You buy stuff at the sale barn. And we've also done where somebody has all these cattle and they want their young stock taken care of for a season. So we'll take care of somebody else's animals for a season. We've tried everything under the sun, doing various different things.
Right.
So
Because
that's actually a really important point. If there's folks that either are farming or want to farm, is you got to have a certain flexibility of mindset.
right.
That you got to figure out what works and then ride with it. And if you don't make a lot of money, think about that. Uh, because I haven't made a lot of money. If you look at my IRS, I'm old enough now that I get statements from the IRS at least once a quarter or something like that. I think it's 14 out of the last 20 years of my life. I've had income below the federal poverty level.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're a musician.
Yeah.
We can explain that.
Yeah. Well, I my three main interests are music, spirituality and ministry, and farming. Like not exactly high income careers. But but one of the things I'm working on now is I have contracts for 3 solar locations, one here in Canton and 2 in Ogdensburg, and there's a couple more coming online in Canton, one of which is right next to Joel Howie's house, where I have my animals, Canton apples. And I don't have enough sheep. And
Ah, right.
I started the people that I bought some sheep from last year. I was like, how would you like to take the summer off? Let me take care of your sheep for you for the summer. They weren't too keen on that. They want rent. They want me to rent the sheep. So
Right.
I'm going to explore renting the sheep. But to have a flexible mindset and to go, oh, it doesn't have to be the way everybody else does it. What's a better way? How can we kind of reinvent this in a way that works? And so that was one question I had wanted to ask you, is how you manage it, because obviously you're also traveling. Like
Right.
you just got back from, I guess, doing talks or trainings or teaching in Africa.
I
And
was
how do you do that?
In February I was doing trainings in Africa. That's one of the reasons why we go with the seasonal livestock.
Right.
We got no animals on the farm. They're all in freezer camp in the wintertime.
I love freezer
So,
camp.
pardon?
I love freezer camp.
Yeah, it's nice. So, so that's one of the reasons why I go, to the tropics in the wintertime. One, it's warm. I get to, work with other people that for them, it makes a difference in their life. They eat better. Their kids are better nourished. Some people prevent themselves from dying. I think that's really worthy work. And then, we're training others to train others and continue to spread that through. And then I do a lot of, tree planting and installation of water management systems, uh, most often in the springtime. So like April, May is like crazy busy time of year. Then it's back to the farm, get things set up for the summer. Once things are all set up, it's like the ditch on the side of the road. It kind of takes care of itself. Now with the animals, typically cattle can be a lot more hands off. And so there'll be someone down the road that this becomes part of their beef operation. And so they've got multiple fields. Now they don't have to pay field rent
Right.
to rent grazing land. So they move their animals over here and they kind of graze around. And I get paid in small beef.
Right.
Um, the pigs are different, is that the pigs really do require somebody to be there every day. And it's been 2 years now since I've had resident pigs here, simply because there hasn't been anybody who's wanted to like stick around and hang out on a farm. And I don't do annual produce now. I quote unquote retired from that 5 years ago, and oh my gosh, my life has been so much easier. I
Yeah.
can't believe how much
Yeah.
work it was to do that.
Yeah. That I got over that fairly quickly. I really, really like the sheep, and there's something about them that I really enjoy the sheep and my livestock guardian dogs. And so that's kind of where I'm focusing. But the beauty of the collaborative model with Joel is he's got the retail thing. He's really building it. He's contacting restaurants, and he's actually selling my meat to some local chefs, and he's got my meat at his farm stand. I'm like, oh, I like this way better than doing retail. So I'm still in the spot where I'm kind of discovering what I don't want to do. I thought I would do pigs, and I saved a couple of female pigs and realized that no, I don't want to raise pigs. That no.
Takes a lot of feed to keep them
A lot of
alive.
feed to keep a 600-pound large
Right.
black pig. And I wintered them over. I did, figure out how to winter pigs over, and I did harvest them in March, and they did just fine. So
I hope you didn't build a structure for them.
I kind of did. I built a little structure, but I used trees that I was going to take down, and
Ah,
we just left them and used those for the vertical supports. And then we just used scrap stuff
right.
that we had around. And
So I've wintered over both pigs and cattle, not all the time. And you take two round bales here and two round bales there,
yeah,
and you face it toward the sun.
yeah.
They hang out, they eat their barn, and they live in the straw. And that was just like so cool to do that. And some of my cover crops, I do peas and triticale, peas and barley, peas and wheat, and then have the neighbor bale that up, and that would have enough grains for the pigs and enough roughage for the cattle. And
Ah,
if the wind is blowing this way, they're on that side. If the wind is
right.
blowing that way, they're on this side.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Worked
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But
That's
back back to your also with your animals, and you were talking about the relationship, how you've got the sheep thing going on. One of the things that recently, this is now the third season with this guy. I got a border collie. His name is Rudy
Ah,
from a ranch in Colorado. He ranch for 6 months with his mom. It's a working ranch with cattle and all that kind of stuff. His dad's intense. His dad is like he's busy and he's moving cows.
yeah.
Mom was more relaxed and laid back. So I get Rudy. He was never trained to herd animals, and I was never trained to herd animals. The first summer I had him, he was afraid.
Uh-huh.
Last summer, he was like, let me at him. Let's figure this out. And so it only took like 2 or 3 weeks that all of a sudden Rudy became like a serious expert herding dog.
That's
And would
great.
run whistle, voice, and hand signals. And so then since then would go to somebody's farm or whatever. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was in New Jersey and we pull in. It's a orchard, retail, all that kind of whatever, market garden stuff. They're trying to load. They had 16 like 3 million pound hogs. They're trying to get onto a trailer, and the pigs aren't having anything to do with it. And there's two guys fighting and screaming and swearing and all that. It's like, well, hey, I'm accustomed to like working with pigs. Why don't you let me work with pigs? And they knew who I am. I'm not a secret in many places. So, well, tell you what, I also got this border collie, if you don't mind. And they're like, yeah, but does he do pigs? It's like, you just watch. And he was amazing. And he had to listen to me. And that little son of a gun, loaded like 16 gigantic hogs onto this trailer. It was just, we I had to give him commands, and the other two guys were important too. But it was just amazing watching him work.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that was a big change in my life. It's genuinely fun again to hang out. It's not just farm work to
yeah,
see what he can do with the animals and how much he
yeah,
loves it. He just loves it.
yeah. And moving the sheep to a new area, it's just you're seeing them being happy. Just
Yeah.
I love moving them, and so we're moving them through Joel's orchards, and he has orchards that he doesn't own. Like he's managing and taking care of land for people, and he's a land appraiser. So he's an extrovert. So he's just it's amazing to watch how I'm benefiting him and he's benefiting me, and it has made all the difference in my life to collaborate.
Well, and that's one of the things I wanted to pick up on is what has made this work is the fact that we're part of a collaborative venture.
Right,
Is when at first we joined the Organic Valley cooperative.
right,
There was only I was actually grower number 24, so there were only 23 members when I joined. It's now the largest organic farmers cooperative on the planet, and it's in the top 100 largest food companies on the planet. It's
wow,
it's a monster. It's huge. So not only is it great having all these neighbors and people that I can collaborate with, it's also great because I get to participate in some of the profit sharing of the company as the company does well.
right,
So I'll buy picking cucumbers and getting paid slave wages for cucumbers. That still sucks. I'm working too hard and not getting paid enough. But I also get dividends, profit sharing dividends from the company. And there's a number of ventures like that.
right.
And it was just yesterday I was on a conference call with John Kempf. Many of your listeners would be familiar with him. He's Amish and he's a serious, advancing eco agriculture is his like trademark slinging lingo, whatever. And that's part of what he was talking about is because we were talking the whole beef thing is that currently right now with the price of young beef animals and the gain that you're going to get, and then the cost of getting slaughter done and transport, and then the price per pound that'll end up being to the customer, it's insane. It's off the charts. How do you how do you continue to be a modest family scale farmer in that particular kind of economic situation? And it basically came down to, well, if you basically have a monopoly where you own 80% of the market, you own all of the rail points that feed that market, you own all the slaughterhouses that do the slaughtering. That's one way to succeed in this market. And the other one is to be a part of a community.
Right.
And so they obviously, Amish have a much stronger community than we do. So we all get together at your place, we slaughter your animals, or we take all of our animals over a place. And so it's more home slaughter, it's not industrial, it's not distribution. Then you've got all your needs taken care of. So then we go and produce, let's just say corn, and we're going to sell corn into the regular market at a shitty price. We have all of our needs taken care of because we're part of a community.
Right.
I can sell the corn for way too low of a price because that's how I get dollars to spend in the economy for the things that we don't make or grow.
Right.
And that's what's worked for me. That's really, if it wasn't for collaborating with others, this wouldn't work.
Right. Yeah. And like I have 5 cows at this point, and my friend Corey has cows, and so my cows are with his cows. His sheep have been with my sheep. We separated them out for lambing at this point, so I don't have to figure out which ones are his and which ones are mine. Um, but that has really, like, I was like, how do I do this? Like, I want to do all this stuff, but I can't do it all myself. Plus, I'm taking care of an elder, and uh, the collaborative model seems to really work, but you can't do it with just anybody or everybody. There has to be that that mindset that you share, and the ability to complement each other rather than compete with each other. So
And there is part of it that I haven't really quite figured out either, is that there's never a question that you and I are going to collaborate. It's just, we've decided to do this, we're going to do this, and together we're going to figure out how to solve this problem.
right,
And instead of say, well, that's enough friction, I'm going to go fucking do it on my own. That is never an option. As part of
right,
that is that
right.
this is how we think now.
Yeah,
And I thought that that's how most humans operate because I've been a part of Organic Valley, the most successful, arguably the most successful farmers co-op around.
right.
We just work together.
Yeah,
And then I start working with other people and other collaborative ventures. Oh, and there's backbiting and subterfuge and cannibalism. And it's like, what on earth is going on? Because I got this false impression that that's what everybody does. So
right,
I'd get into these other collaborative ventures, trusting that that's what would happen, and find out that, oh my gosh, no, that's not
right.
how a lot of people operate.
Yeah. Well, I started out trying to find land. Kind of, I worked with the Greg Judy model of looking for other people's land, which was a huge eye opener for me, and then trying to lease land from people and basically offer them a small amount of money for the land. And the first person was like, no, I don't need the money, but I'd like you to you know do wood for me. And so I tried doing that, but that that I could tell right from the beginning, this was during the pandemic, that this lady was difficult to work with.
Right.
um, but I had no other options. I had just moved to the area, I didn't know anybody. And so I was like, well, I better start with this. And I did learn a lot, and we did part our ways fairly amicably. But there had been a number of different collaborations that didn't quite work out. And then finally, I managed to find this guy, Joel, and we're on the same page. And I just don't want to farm without him. And
What kind of a walk-in cooler does he have? How big is his walk-in cooler?
he has a decent sized walk in cooler. He does have a building that he just built last year. And he has another room that he rents out to the tea ladies who do tea. That's their office, but that's kind of planned to be a freezer room at some point. I don't know if it's 4x10, his walk-in cooler.
Okay. All right. Well, reason why I was asking is that, speaking of collaboration, is the nursery part of what I do is what we'll do is we um, all the different seed for the various different woody crops are grown at different nurseries,
Huh?
and it's my lot of trees, and so we bring them in bulk, we repack them and ship out retail from there, and then we will have from the originating nursery, they'll go direct to the larger tree planting jobs, and so always looking for cooler space, but I think that's too small for what we would need.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably too small. But when you come in October, you'll get to meet Joel. And
Cool.
I think there's going to be some collaboration as well. I also have a friend down in Albany who I think would be a good customer for you because he does landscaping. He's a landscaper. And he's he's really selling his clients on edible plantings, things that it's mostly for suburban, fairly
Yeah.
well-off people, but it would, he's always looking for trees that people can eat stuff off of.
I was just wondering what the guy's name is, because it
Uh,
may already be a client.
my friend in Albany, Mike Covey, Flower of Life Landscaping.
Okay. I think I've met him
Really?
upon a time. I think so. But
He's
in either case, a lot of people that are doing the edible landscapes, that all forest agriculture nursery is the entity that is the nursery side of things. The restoration agriculture development is the design and install. We do a lot of the water management system, ponds and swales and terraces, and then we do the tree planting using forest ag material,
nice. I love
which
it.
is another back to stacking of all these different things. If you've got a
Right.
chestnut tree over an apple tree, over a hazelnut shrub with currants and gooseberries and raspberries,
Right.
that's a vertically integrated system. Well, there's a real estate development company that acquires land or works with large landowners. Then they hire RAD to come in and do the design and install of the water management system and the tree planting, and it gets the trees from the nursery. The nursery gets the seed from the farm.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Circular economy.
I love it. And at some point, I'm hoping that we can actually sell trees and starts and stuff to the general public at Joel's stand, if that's something that we can find somebody to.
You will be starting next spring. You have the ability to do so. I can
Hey,
send you some material about how we do that with people.
perfect. Perfect. I love it.
We work with a lot of folks like that. They have their own retail space,
Right.
and all they're doing, you think about any kind of retail business, Walmart, you buy bulk of this and then you sell it retail that. That's
Right.
a business that's legit.
Right.
Somehow people in the nursery say they get stuck on this thing that I have to actually plant the seed and grow the seed
Right. Oh,
and
wow.
then dig it and then sell it. It's like, well, that's too much work.
Yeah.
Buy bulk, split them up,
Yep.
sell it retail, and then we got you covered. You're fine.
I love it. I love it. All
Next
right.
spring.
Is there anything else you would like to talk about that we haven't covered? Because we're getting a little short on time here.
I'm just thinking it'd be nice to have some sort of a nap.
Nap. Yeah, I'm thinking a nap would be cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, what's really interesting is we have been going through a really dry period, and we finally got rain yesterday and today, and it's like I'm about to take off on Sunday on my next work travels, and it's like I got too much to do right now, and
Yeah.
but it's raining and it's muddy and it's cold, and so
Yeah.
that's why the nap sounds good.
Good. Yeah. That's excellent. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. One question that I do like to ask is, who do you want to be when you grow up?
It's a good question. I think what's really interesting is it was gradual at first, but there was kind of a real distinct line that was drawn when I was 24 years old. And I think when it was 24 years old that I had made the full-on commitment to be me. And so that's kind of who I am. And I'm always becoming, always changing, learning. According to some people, I'm growing. According to some people, I'm not. You know, obviously, there's warts and bumps and all that kind of stuff. The Christmas special with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I'm on the island of misfit toys, and so I'm doing the best I can with what I got. But I think being me is pretty good. I really enjoy interacting with nature the way I interact with nature, and I really enjoy meeting the cool people that I get to meet, like you.
Yeah, same
Think
here.
think about how many parallels you and I have uh, all the way through our life, even if our names weren't both Mark L. Shepard.
No.
That alone, the fact that you've been able to survive that all these years is a credit to your name for sure.
God. Yeah. Well, I'm grateful that you're in the world doing what you're doing. You inspire the hell out of me all the time. And there have been times when I'm like, why am I doing this? And go back and watch one of your videos and I'm back in. I'm back in. And so you have given so much value to me in my life. And I'm excited to get to know you in person, and I'm excited that you're going to come to Canton in October. And
Actually, specifically, when is your event scheduled for October?
October 4th, I believe. It's the first Friday in October.
Okay, because we're planning, a couple of installation jobs on this end, and I looked at my calendar and it's not there, and I could have sworn you and I set it on the calendar, and
Yes.
I don't have it on my calendar. So
Put it on your calendar.
I'm gonna put it on the calendar.
Put
Weekend.
it on your calendar. We're going to make a big deal, and we're actually going to do some music together. We're going to get into the recording studio.
So here's part of it. You gotta get me a song list, and if we have like a handful of songs, say we're gonna do these songs, and then give me your version of it. Now, understand, I live off grid. My
Yes.
house is a half a mile from here, and it's a walk from here to there, and there's no phone signal, there's no internet down there. So I need to put something on my computer as an MP3 or whatever, so I can go there and do it. Well, then I also work with a lot of, Amish preppers in a lot of remote areas, mountainous ranches and stuff like that, where there is no signal. And so I would like to have that song list with the recorded versions that I need to figure out how to play to those tunes.
Right.
It'll be okay.
Right. And you need probably chords and lyrics also.
Yeah, that kind of thing, right?
Definitely coming back to life. We're definitely doing coming back to life. And I think I sent you just a very rough version of that. And I want to finish build
We
us
got
a
together.
desert.
Together we can change the world is a must do.
Yeah, we got to do that one.
Building the desert thing is a pretty good one too.
Yeah. And I may need a bridge, and I may run the lyrics by you for your input. I mean,
Right.
because you inspired that song with your slideshow about the Middle East.
Yeah.
So I want to use your slides for the music video too.
And think about the Middle East right now. That is if you have an app called Annual Crops Agriculture, and you run that app for about 10,000 years, that's what the Middle East is. That's 10,000 year run of the Annual Agriculture app.
Yeah.
What it is.
Yeah.
So also figure out which songs of mine that you want to play.
Yes.
I'm pretty competent at those.
Okay. I definitely want to do the Mad Cow one. That was good, and I have to re-listen to some of the others. If there's a song of yours you want to do, let me know, and
Yeah.
I will learn
the
it.
tree song that you heard me play on that one YouTube video. That's a must.
Okay. I'll write that down. It's tree song.
I don't even know if I have an actual title for it.
Right.
Maybe just like a tree is what it is.
Right. I have to go back through all our many emails back and forth.
Right.
You obviously are feeling better now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well, except that just 2 days ago I went and I had on each shoulder additional immunizations to keep my travel records updated, and oh my gosh, this one is just my right shoulder is just brutal right now.
Yeah.
I got work to do. Come on, I can't.
I know. All right. Well, speaking of work, get back to work. Thank you so much for this interview and for this time. And we'll check back in again soon, and we'll get working on our musical collaboration and other collaborative things. So,
Yeah.
Mark Shepard, thank you very much.
Mark Shepard, thank you very much. So
I will have all of your websites and stuff in the description below the video when I post it. And I think we're good.
do you edit these a bit before sending them out, or they go out raw?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we made any massive errors, but it'd be nice to have a peek at it before you make it go public.
Absolutely. Cool and groovy.
All right.
All right, man. Farming is church.
Weekend of October 4th, right?
Yes.
All right, cool.
Friday in October.
All right. See ya.
We're promoting you.
Likewise.
All right, here we go. Thanks,
Thanks, Mark.
man. All right. Bye. How do I hang up? I guess I got to stop recording. There we go.
And you just go leave.
So there you have it. Mark Shepard. The guy's amazing. He's so authentic and he's brilliant. And what an honor it was to hang out and talk with him and get to know him a little bit better. And I hope you guys will check out his work. Check his work out. Buy his books. And watch his videos. The man is a revolutionary, and what he is talking about makes total and complete sense. And we need to start doing it. And if you're not going to be somebody who's going to do it, then find somebody who is willing to do it and then support them. Buy their meat, all right? Buy their produce, buy their products, support them, and wow, it finally stopped raining. Peace, love, grooviness, over and out. This is starting a profitable, regenerative farm from scratch. And this has been the very first of what I hope are many interviews with people that have inspired me and taught me, and to spread their ideas and deepen my own understanding of what the heck it is they're talking about. So that's it for now. Peace, love, grooviness, over and out. Boom.